This is Pod Populi.
Podcast for the people.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
Hi again, everyone. It's Brian Howie. Welcome to the Great Love Debate, the world's #1 dating and relationship podcast. Since 2015, I am here in the fine studios of Pod Populi in Boca Raton, Florida. It's very, very nice here. And over the last, year or so, we've done quite a few shows about the end of relationships. And we're not doing that to try and put a downer on things. We are in the love business here. We're selling hope around here. But sometimes the best way to get into a good relationship is to get out of a bad relationship. And we've had authors on here, and we have had broken-hearted people on here, and we've had therapists on here. And I've got somebody I've tried to get in here for a couple months now. I finally got her busy schedule to sync with mine. She's the host of the Your Amazing Divorce podcast. She's been a marriage, family, lawyer, life coach, helping out the ladies, maybe even the men for many, many years. And she's going to answer a lot of my questions, which I know are a lot of your questions because you guys have been emailing me this about for a long time. Doreen Yaffa, how are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Are there too many divorces or not enough?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. I guess it's just about right.
It's the right amount. Maybe it's not the right ones.
No, it's, things just kind of happen in relationships. People just grow apart. So
yeah, I think so. We talked about this on a prior podcast where, the old stat that half of marriages end in divorce, but there's a big chunk that stay together unhappily. And there's a bunch of reasons for that. Kids, money, or whatever. But a lot of people stay into it because they just don't either know how or they're afraid of the process of divorce.
Absolutely, 100%.
And what are they afraid of? Are they afraid the legal paperwork? They're afraid that it's going to be a mistake? Are they afraid that they don't know where to turn? The cost? All
of it.
All of it.
I think that people generally, when they're in an unhappy relationship, an unhappy marriage, they're afraid of the unknown. People tend to stay in relationships because they know what they're getting, even though it's bad.
The devil you know.
Oh, yeah. And so, just as the humans that we are, most of us are not looking for change. We might want change, but getting there is difficult. And especially when you're in a bad relationship. So it's the cost, it's the kids, it's, what am I going to do? I'm going to lose half of everything. So, and the fear of the legal process itself is always, something that's of great concern.
How often do you run across, I get that the two biggest issues traditionally in divorce are money and custody.
Sure.
How often is it that one just doesn't want to get divorced? The emotion, how much of it is just they're not on the same page?
I think most of the time. I've been practicing now in Florida for 28 years, and I've seen a great evolution in the law. And because of the legal standard that as lawyers we're basically governed by, it's pretty simple. It's not complicated. There's an equitable distribution, there's asset division, presumption of 50-50, not so challenging to figure out, right? Maybe they have issues as to the value of a business or the value of a real estate or something, but easy. You have custody issues, which nowadays most of the parents work out. It's primarily they just don't want to get divorced. Basically, maybe one party doesn't. Or again, they're in the process, but they're just fearful. And so everyone's in this emotional state that they're just kind of stuck in. I think as lawyers, it's our responsibility to help nudge them in that direction and let them know it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. You're going to get to the better side of your life, and you will. And
that's a big part of it, understanding when they get through this storm that there's new opportunities and bright sunny skies and whatever. But in the heat of the emotion and whatever the reasons are for people getting divorced, it's never a good thing that something has to end that you at some point had high hopes for.
Absolutely. But they do get there. And I have to tell you, in my 28 years of doing this, I can maybe name on one hand how many people went through the divorce process and ended up being in a worse position. Very few. If I was to statistically look at it, I am sure most got to a better place.
And most are like, I wish I did this years ago.
Yeah. And you know what? Just because your family is ending in the traditional sense, it's still a family if you have children together.
Right.
And so, many people see it as a failure. I tend to see it, or help people to see, it's the beginning of some different relationship that you're going to have with your ex. And that can be a beautiful thing. I mean, I'm a prime example of that.
We're in the state of Florida as we record this, and you practice in Florida. Florida's easier than some other states. Some other states is like a long cooling off. Like I think Maryland is like that, where like you can't do anything for a year.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I know that we are one of the easier states, and there are requirements. Like here, you have to be a resident for 6 months before you can get divorced. But there's no if after you fulfill the residency requirement, you can get divorced. One party can want the divorce, the other doesn't need to want it. It's still going to happen, and there's no cooling off period. There's steps to get through it, but it's not like you have to wait and consider things and take, an abatement. No, it's not like that.
Now, I asked a big network TV exec one time, I go, how come there's not shows about divorce lawyers? And he said, I go, there's a lot of legal shows, but very rarely is one devoted to a divorce law, family law practice. And he goes, it hits too close to home and people don't want to watch it. But you've dove into this. You're passionate about it.
Yeah.
And you spin it on your podcast and in real life as I am doing something that's going to help people's lives. How did you get interested in this aspect of law?
I came from a divorced family. So my parents divorced when I was 5. My sister was 3. And my dad didn't want anything to do with us after that. A lot of it had to do with the fact that we were living in Massachusetts. My mother purposely relocated to Florida, so, distance-wise, and he married the woman he was having an affair with. So I guess that kind of put it into some perspective that, he chose them and his new stepdaughter over me and my sister. So I got into it because I saw my mom and I saw what she went through, and she had a really tough time. I remember as a child and a young, person, just seeing her really not recover from the divorce in a very healthy way and go into a lot of depression. Now, and back, when I became older, I realized what it was. I thought there's got to be a better way, and I was affected by that, by not seeing my father. So between that, and it's really very interesting practice. It's not just about divorce. I mean, there's a lot of complicated business issues and valuation. It can be very sophisticated.
Right.
So, I love it.
When somebody comes to you,
everybody.
The first meeting that somebody usually has from you, they use the phrase, I'm thinking about it. And how do you gauge how far along the line they are in their thought process?
I can usually gauge that pretty quickly. So if I was statistically to look at it, I think that women, when they come to see me, are pretty much ready to get divorced. Generally. They're getting information. They've kind of made up their mind. Men are kind of feeling it out more. What am I going to lose? How much am I going to pay? What is it going to cost me?
Oh, no, that's so sad.
And
how big's the check?
Yeah, and they're concerned about that. Rightfully so. I get it.
You talked about the 50-50 earlier.
Yeah.
I know states differ. It's 50-50 of what you made while you were married. So if you were a wealthy guy and you got married and your wealth sort of stayed the same, she doesn't get half of that, right? Or does that depend on the state?
Well, first of all, if you're a wealthy person, not just male, but female, you should have a prenup. Side note. But yeah, so basically you look at the date of the valuation, let's say the marital estate before you got married, and then you look at the date as of the date of the filing of the divorce, and you see what you had then that remained intact and stayed separate and apart, and what you have now. And
so if she spent a bunch of your money and it went down,
that's it. It's gone. It's gone.
How do you have that conversation, though? How do you have the prenup conversation without... I mean, that's got to be so awkward. Unless you're super rich and then you're like, my board is making me do this.
Well, you know what? A lot of times, especially here in South Florida, we have children of wealthy parents, trust children. We have people that have already been through divorce that have substantial wealth.
Right.
They're smart, most of them. I have to tell you that I've had more prenup signings in the last, let's say, 60 days than I've had in a long time. I'm getting them on a regular basis. It's just smart. If you think about it, if 50% of the people get divorced, I don't know, kind of have to figure that out.
Yeah.
Right? And why wouldn't you? And I hear a lot of younger people getting prenups. They just want to tie that part up and not have to worry about it.
You focus mainly on women.
Not really. I focus on women for my life coaching,
Right.
but for both male and female as a divorce lawyer.
How is the process, other than what you said, and they come to you and they're not quite sure, but the breakup, take the infidelity out of it, take it, we just grew apart out of it. Do you try and get into the why you're getting divorced and try and say, or you're just like, okay, you want to get divorced and how much of you are you blending life coaching with divorce?
Well, I blend it, but I think any good divorce attorney, first question is your marriage irretrievably broken? Because that's one of the criteria for getting divorced. And if you can save the marriage, like I have a case right now where he doesn't want to be divorced, but the wife has some severe substance abuse issues. He'd rather her get help.
Right.
But this has been ongoing for years. And as we know, we can't force people into, treatment. So he's made a decision to get divorced. Would he prefer not? Of course. So when I spoke to him, it was all about, well, what have you tried? Have you tried to get her in therapy? And how have you tried that first? Because he doesn't want this. We tried a few more things, gave him some advice, and now we had to file. That's a first question. But from there, the life coaching, for me, it's just part of what I already did because I truly care about my clients. And I want them to get to a better place. But like anything, it's a cost benefit. Sometimes you can stay and work things out. And if you can, I encourage that. And maybe open their thoughts to some of the ideas to keep the marriage together that maybe they didn't consider, like a postnuptial agreement.
Right.
Like maybe we have financial issues. The wife is spending too much or the husband's irresponsible,
He's like,
right?
you can take on this, let's stay together, but you can, I don't want to be responsible for this debt if it gets out of hand.
Right.
Post-nup. Yeah.
And that can work in some cases, where now they've resolved that and they can really focus in on other issues in their relationship. So
is custody easier to work out than the money?
it depends. Most of the cases that I deal with, I would say that the parties pretty much have the best interests of the children in line, and they're able to work it out. It's a little, here and there, but they work through it. Other cases, not so much. And I can kind of identify those clients that have an agenda with the children really far away.
Yeah, you don't want to use the children as a
Absolutely
as a weapon.
No way.
I'm always surprised at how often woman or a man they hate each other and think they are the devil, and then they're like, "Oh, but he's a good father."
Oh, sure.
And they really can compartmentalize, which is shocking to me. Or they're like, "We made this child together who we both love and we share this, and I see the good things in the child," but they're really able to compartmentalize, which is
It's amazing.
props to them.
It's good for them. I mean, my ex-husband, Sam, who's also a lawyer but doesn't touch family law, he does medical malpractice and PI stuff. Him and I would consider him one of my best friends. Like
Really?
literally, I could call him at 3 a.m. I need him. He's there for me. Same here. The kids were
Do
everything.
you handle your own divorce? Is that
Did
normal?
not, because you have a fool for a client, right? So no, I had somebody else handle it. But at the end, we really put our lawyers aside and we went to mediation ourselves, and we banged it out in 8 hours, and we went to dinner.
How often does somebody either change their mind on the money, like, "Oh my God, I can't, I signed that and I want to go back and do it again," or you know what, I realize I still love him. Can we get this back together? Or that's not your problem.
No. I call them my annuities. I've had that happen. But most of the time, when we get through the process, the legal system is still, it's got a lot of problems. So just no matter how amicable, you have to do certain things in the legal process that kind of push people further apart. And it's changing slowly. But by the end, they usually don't really consider reconciliation. But I have had a few.
Yeah, we talked about that on a podcast a couple of years ago, that boyfriend and girlfriends break up and they get back together all the time, but rarely. And people are like, once the legal gets involved, it
changes everything.
It does. It changes the tone and how you see them. When somebody gets divorced, how do they understand the process of it, or how much of it like you have to teach them? Here are the steps, and here's what's going to work, and it's not just we sit in a room and here's how we find the money, and here's how we realize who gets what and whatever. It's complicated. You're earning your money on this.
It's